What's up, scholars? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about Bungo Stray Dogs. Bungo is one of my favorite mangas. My favorite mangas I've ever had the pleasure of reading, and it is actually a really good anime. Of course, the anime is very different than the manga itself because Bungo Stray Dogs is very unique in the sense that it has so many different stories within it. There are spin-off mangas like Bungo Stray Dogs Beast has its own manga that has its own story within the universe with these characters, but there's also light novels that get adapted for the anime, like the light novel that deals with the untold origins of the agency that just got adapted for season 4 of the anime. But there's also the light novels that deal with like Dazai's entrance exam into the detective agency. It deals with Chuya and his past and everything that goes along with that. There's so much, and then you get these little spin-offs that are really fun, like Bungo Stray Dogs 1, which is so funny and it's adorable. But it all exists within the same universe, within the same story, with all the same characters. It just makes it such a unique story to begin with, but that really adds to Bungo's charm, and it actually adds to the storytelling aspect that I believe Bungo Stray Dogs is just masterful at. So what we're going to talk about in this video is I'm just going to kind of give my thoughts on why I think more people should read Bungo Stray Dogs, why they should watch Bungo Stray Dogs, and why Bungo as a story succeeds so much. And it's mostly due to the storytelling and, surprise surprise, the characters. So Bungo Stray Dogs is a very complex, layered, and nuanced story. I think this story has confused more people on what the plot is and what the plot is about, because they can't ever seem to think about it or get it down pat, because there's so much that goes on in this story. And that's due to the nature of how Asagiri writes this story. And he actually very cleverly hides the main plot of the story within all of the other subplots that move the story along, that introduce us to all these characters that we see later on down the line. And he just so cleverly weaves the main plot throughout this. It's almost in the background that you forget about it at times, what the story is actually headed towards, what the main goal of the story is. And he hides it in the back until the moment it needs to become the forefront, and then it's like, bam, it's there. If you haven't seen Bungo Stray Dogs yet, if you haven't read Bungo Stray Dogs yet, I will put a small spoiler warning right here for those who have read it. I am going to talk about what the main plot of this story is, and it is the book. And the book that can alter reality, which we are seeing coming to fruition in season 4. This book, the plot about the book, was starting to come into play even back in season 1. And in the manga, it comes into play at the end of volume 1, when the mafia is already trying to hunt Atsushi down because there's been a bounty placed on his head by the guild, because the guild wants the book. And I love this storytelling method because Asagiri really kind of subverts expectations when it comes to a typical storytelling method. It's not very straightforward. It is really dense, and it's very layered and very hidden underneath a lot of other things that go on. And I actually love that he does this because of the type of story it is. Because that's part of the appeal of the story. There are these special powers with these characters. There's detectives, there's the mafia, so you have like a detective story. It's a mystery. You're having to figure it out as you go. And accompanying that are these fights and this insane mind game and chess games that are going on with some of these characters. And you have these mysterious villains that you have to really look at and try to decipher what their motives are, what their plans are, so that the agency can fight against that, so the mafia can respond to it, so everybody can respond to it. And it's just so creative. It's such a creative twist on a classic detective story or a classic mystery that it makes it so much more entertaining and so much more interesting as you get to see all of this unfold in front of your eyes, as you get to sit here and try to figure out what's going on, because none of the characters, besides maybe like two, know what's going on. And you're just sitting there in shock trying to figure out how all of this is happening and how you can keep up with what's going on. So the plot itself is a very interesting dynamic, and it has such a great intrigue to it that it draws people in to make them want to read more, to make them want to watch more. And I think that's such a clever way to write a story, that's such a clever way to write a manga, and Asagiri is so smart. I love the way he writes a story. I love the way he has crafted this plot and the storytelling, because his storytelling isn't going to be like the typical storytelling you see in other manga and other books, any other piece of fiction, because already there is this sense of mystery and intrigue and not confusion, but this type of unsettlement that you don't know what's going on. Even with the title itself, Bungo Stray Dogs, that gives absolutely nothing away about what this story is about. It can be very confusing because you have no idea what you're about to get yourself into, and then you dive in and you're like, this is not what I was expecting at all. What is this? Like, what is this story? I think that's so cool. He just wants to, like, Asagiri is a pro at subverting expectations at every turn. From the plot of weaving the main plot behind all of these different subplots and the characters and these character motivations, having it hide behind that until it needs to come to the forefront is such a cool storytelling method. I really like that. And to add on to that, you have the characters in this world. And the characters and Bungo Stray Dogs are some of my favorite characters ever, because they are so, I don't even know how to describe, they're so complicated. There is not a single character in this story that has a simple motivation, that has a simple background. No, it is all very complex. There's a lot of trauma, and it's so compelling to look at these characters, because one of my all-time favorite characters comes from this manga. You can see him right back here on the shelf. It is Dazai. Dazai is one of the most complex characters I have ever seen written in fiction. He is such a cool character because he's not a good person. Dazai is not a good person, but he's trying to be a better person because of certain reasons. So his motivations in and of itself, just right there, already makes it very complicated, and like you get to see this push and pull with how he reacts to certain things, his actions and all of that. But also, he's not the only character in the show like that. All of these characters, which is one of the reasons I believe Bungo is so good at the characters, is because you're not looking at, oh, well, these are the good guys, these are the heroes, these are the villains, these are the bad guys. No, it's not like that at all. You have people who are on the good side, the detective agency, who are inherently not good people. Like, they're just not. Like, Dazai is a prime example of that, but you also have characters like Yosano, which Yosano's backstory is getting animated in the 4th season now, so I can kind of talk about this. But like with Yosano's past and the things that Mori forced her to do doesn't really make her a good person, but it doesn't make her a bad person either. And you get to see like her actions, her motivations, how that influences her. But she's in the detective agency, so she's one of the good people. You also have Fukuzawa, who, with the Untold Origins, you kind of get a glimpse into his past and the type of work that he used to do. He's not inherently a good person either. Even though all of them are technically on the good side, they're on our protagonist side, that doesn't mean they're good people. And the same goes for some of the antagonists and villains of this series. Because you have like the port mafia, who obviously they're part of the mafia, that they're definitely not good people, they are bad. But you get these situations where you're like, oh, they're not really that bad of a person. Like Chuya, for example, he was kind of tricked into joining the mafia, and you know, he did it because he had nowhere else to go, and he realized like under Mori's leadership he would be able to thrive and he could do good in the setting of the mafia, would be where he would thrive. But he's not inherently a bad person, he just does bad things. But you also have actual villains in this show who are just despicable. I don't know any other way to say it. Like Mori. Mori is a villain of this show that I personally want him to have his comeuppance by the time this story ends. That is just a personal thing with me. I really just want him to get what's coming to him after everything that he's done. But Mori is a very compelling villain because he's so smart and he's tactical and he's a strategist. So that gives him an edge over a lot of different things, and he can see events coming and he adapts to it, reacts to it in a way that puts the mafia in a winning position. He's also just a terrible person. But so it's like you have a villain that was introduced at the very end of season 1, let's say, for the anime's sake, that stays a villain, and you know he's not good, but the detective agency sometimes works with him for basically for the greater good, like to defeat a greater evil. And that greater evil is, I think, one of the best villains I've ever seen, because not only is he one of the smartest characters I've ever seen, but his personality, especially in the manga, is so interesting and hilarious to me. But it's Fyodor. Fyodor Dostoevsky is one of two main villains in this show. I'm not counting Mori. There's Fyodor and he who must not be named for spoiler purposes. Manga readers will probably know who I'm talking about. But there are two main villains in this show. Fyodor is one of them, and there's another one down the road. But Fyodor is one of those villains that he is absolutely horrendous. Like, he does atrocious acts and has done horrible things. But he's so smart, and he's such a charming villain that even the readers get drawn in by what he does and the things he says and the actions he takes, to the point where we get our guard down in front of this villain. Like, when in season 4, this new season, I'll talk a little bit about this because it's not complete spoilers because it's already been on air. So in season 4, Fyodor is in prison and we get to see him interact with Dazai. Their conversations with each other is just straight up hilarious, and they're both so charming when they're talking about each other. And it makes us forget that they're playing with each other. First of all, they are playing a game with each other, a chess game, but they're toying with the lives of everybody outside the prison, like toying with the detective agency, with the mafia, with the guild, everybody. And because of Fyodor's personality, because of the way he just so casually and nonchalantly does things, it throws the reader for a loop when you remember what it is that he's done, what he's doing. It's like, oh crap, like, this is the guy we have to defeat. And Fyodor, I love how smart he is. Fyodor is a villain where you actually feel that intimidation and that fear of what's gonna happen if he wins, because he could very well win. And if that happens, that's just not gonna be a good day for anybody. But you have such compelling villains in this series that it actually makes you feel like the protagonists can and will lose, because there are villains in this manga that provide an actual threat. And I think Asagiri does this so brilliantly because in a lot of shows and a lot of manga or books or any sort of fiction, one of the biggest problem is when you create this villain, you have to create an actual sense of the villain has a chance to win. Otherwise, it doesn't make him such a compelling villain. Some shows do this very well, some don't do it very well. But Asagiri creates a villain where you know there is a scenario where he could win. His chances of victory are higher than our protagonists, and it actually sets really, really high stakes for the main characters in this show. And I love that. I love that so much. Now, I made another video about Bungo Stray Dogs, kind of breaking down the first 3 seasons. I'll link that down below if y'all want to go watch it. I made that video a long time ago. I think it was last year, early last year. So, yeah, if y'all want to go watch it, you can. But basically, in that video, I broke down like what happens in the first 3 seasons regarding the plot and regarding the storytelling aspect of this show. Just to give a brief summary of this plot, because so many people get confused about the book, or like who's the main character. Is Atsushi the main character? Is it Dazai? Is it Kurikita? Yosano? Is it people in the Port Mafia? We don't know. But there is a very certain reason that Atsushi is the main character, and Asagiri has chosen him perfectly. And I love that Atsushi plays a very similar role as the main plot in this story. That his role as the main character can sometimes seem to drift into the background, that he's part of a bigger protagonist as a whole. Like if the Armed Detective Agency was the protagonist, like the agency itself and the people within it. And he cleverly plays this role where it doesn't always seem like he's the main character. He's just kind of in the background, moving along with all the plots as they're progressing and as things are happening. But he's the main character for a reason. Atsushi was targeted at the very beginning because he had a bounty on him from the guild, because the guild wanted the book, and who could get him the book? Atsushi. Atsushi is called Tiger Beetle for a reason. And I love that Asagiri does this so intentionally. His storytelling is very intentional, while also it can be a little confusing at times because there's so much going on. And even as a manga reader, getting into like especially some of the later chapters, there's so much that is going on that it's just hard to keep up with everything. But there's a reason. There's a reason it's all happening like this. I love that Atsushi in this story, as the main character, kind of plays a similar role as the main plot. It moves in the background until it's time for the main plot and the main character to shine. And when it does, everything falls into place. Such a brilliant story. It really is. It really is such a brilliant story, and you get these very high intelligent character. Like you have these very intelligent characters in this story that just make it so enjoyable. So if you haven't watched Bungo Stray Dogs, if you haven't read Bungo Stray Dogs, I would highly suggest doing so. It has a fantastic story. The story and the plot is so great, and you have to pay attention to it, though. It's a story you have to pay attention to. The characters are fantastic. I love all the characters. There's a lot of dark humor in this story. There's a lot of dark humor in this story. But as it progresses, some of that dark humor starts to fade away as it gets more serious. Bungo Stray Dogs is very good at throwing people off, because when you first get into the story, you think it's more of a comedy and it's more laid back and not as serious, until it's serious and the comedy disappears. It is very good at deceiving its readers, and I love that aspect to it, because you think you can get a very happy story with some really goofy characters, and no, it's so much more than that. It's a great story. You have great characters, there's great humor, there is one of the best villains I've ever seen in this anime, in this manga. And I believe this story works in so many different ways because of how the story is set up and because of how the characters are made. Just makes it so enjoyable from start to finish, and I would highly recommend this manga or anime to anybody. The fourth season of this anime is still currently airing. I've been enjoying it very much, even as a manga reader, so I kind of know what's coming. It's been such a pleasure to see how they're adapting some of these scenes. I'm really enjoying it. But I would highly suggest you go read the manga because it is very, very different than the anime, and they've changed some things to fit like the adaptation. I would go read the manga. The manga itself has darker tones to it than the anime does, and the anime is already pretty dark at some spots. The manga's darker. All in all, I think it is a fantastic read, and it is a fantastic watch if you're not one who really reads manga a lot. I still think you would very much enjoy watching it. Those are my thoughts on Bungo Stray Dogs. I could probably talk about some of these characters in great detail for hours on end, especially characters like Dazai or Fyodor. I could talk about those two specifically for such a long time. But I just wanted to make this video to express why I think more people should watch or read Bungo Stray Dogs, and why I think it succeeds so well with its storytelling, and why the story itself is so successful. So for those who have watched Bungo Stray Dogs, let me know what you think down below. As you're watching the fourth season, what are your thoughts on it, and how are you taking this new season, everything that's happening in it? For those who have read the manga and are caught up with the manga, how are we feeling? Are we okay? Let me know your thoughts on the manga too without leaving spoilers. Like, do not leave spoilers down below for those who haven't got caught up in the manga. We're not going to do any spoilers on the manga right now. We're not going to do any manga spoilers down in the comments. So if you want to tell me, like, I've read the manga, I am in pain, that's an okay comment. That's acceptable because I am in pain too. So yes, that's fine. But don't go into great detail about what's happening in the manga for those who have not caught up yet. And for those who have neither watched or read Bungo Stray Dogs, I hope this video has at least put Bungo Stray Dogs on your radar, maybe like giving you a little nudge to go read it or watch it, because I want more people to talk about Bungo Stray Dogs with. I want this story to be known by so many more people because it deserves to be seen and it deserves to be read by so many people because it's so good and it's an amazing story. So let me know what your thoughts are down below about this video in general. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'll probably be making more Bungo Stray Dogs content in the future, especially since season 4 was airing and it's kind of gotten a little more hype behind it with the new season. So that always kind of brings a little bit more people back into like the manga or the show or the story in general. So yeah, I'm really excited. I really hope more people start reading this story so you can expect more Bungo Stray Dogs content in the future. But until then, I will be having the Thriller Bark review for One Piece out next week, and I think Skip Beat will be the week after that. So if you want to look at all my One Piece videos that I've done, I'll link the thingy, right, the playlist up here, I guess. Yeah, up here. If you want to see all my other videos, you can go check out my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. If you want more Bungo Stray Dogs content and you want like a specific character or for me to talk about something specifically about the story in general, let me know down below what you would like to see for content on Bungo Stray Dogs, because I am totally open to it. Other than that, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time, scholars!